Back to the SportsMax Zone. Now, after the completion of the regular season, the playoff stage of the Jamaica Premier League kicks off Saturday. 4 teams in quarter-final playoffs battling to join number 2 Cavalier and top-seeded Waterhouse in the semis. Harbour will take on Mount Pleasant, then Vere United come up against Tivoli Gardens. You can catch those matches live on SportsMax from midday, 1 o'clock Eastern Caribbean time. And joining us now to preview the first leg of the playoff fixtures, our resident analyst for the Jamaica Premier League, Dewight Jeremiah. Dwight, let me start here as we welcome you to the show. Before we get into the preview of the playoffs, Portmore, defending champions 2 years in a row, not making the playoffs. They had started the season on fire, 4 wins in their first 5 games, and ended up the season with 4 consecutive losses. How disappointing has it been for you to see Portmore decline in the way that they have, and not really making much of a fight to retain their title?
Yeah, I believe that they would have been there when the season started. You're right, they were the team that started on fire, but they just couldn't put together a consistent run. Once they hit the first rut, they never got back to the stage where it was a consistent run. So they picked up a win here or there, but it was punctuated with draws or losses and unlikely losses as well too. So yeah, it's disappointing. They really didn't put up a challenge, and for the winningest team in the land in this competition, I'm pretty sure their fans are disappointed that they didn't really put a fight in.
Yeah. So the first quarterfinal playoff is Harbour against Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant have looked a better team than Harbour if you look at the overall regular season. But you know, head to head, Mount Pleasant have found Harbour a difficult customer in the past, with the head-to-head meetings favouring Harbour over Mount Pleasant. What are the factors you think that would decide this first leg here between these 2 teams?
You talk about head-to-head. My head says Mount Pleasant, my heart says Harbour because of my leading towards them over the years. But I think Harbour, the problem I have for them is that defensively they're too easy to get at. I just think, and I'm not just talking about the 4 at the back, I'm just talking as a unit. Too often you see one pass break 1 or 2 lines or 3 lines sometimes. I just think in transition they're too open, and I would want to think that Coach Bernard would spend his week working on that aspect, because you have a Mount Pleasant team that if you play open with them, they have the weapons to score. And in recent times we've seen the resurgence of the talented Jordan Fletcher, who has 3 goals in his last 3 games. And they have Keslan Hall also, who can score as well. So I think if Harbour comes into this one as open as they have been, then they could find themselves in some trouble. I mean, they've won 2 games in a row, arguably you could say 2 finals, to get into the top 6. But I think unconvincingly when I look at the defensive side of their game, and that's something they have to get right. If they don't, an open game, I could see Mount Pleasant winning that one 2 goals to 1 or more.
Yeah, and the other factor for Harbour that they have to consider is if Mount Pleasant is showing the ability to be prolific in scoring, and now Harbour has lost Johnny Talbot, who got an overseas contract and has left, there will have to be some adjustments in the Harbour defence, won't there?
It will have to be. I know they've used Lovell Palmer there early in the season. I've seen young Gerald Neal in there as well, but they're going to have to find a fix and a decent pairing to really fill in for Talbot. Talbot was their leader, but also the man who organized things at the back. So yeah, that's a big void. But I think, as I said before, that has compounded the situation where they're just too open for my liking. So yeah, they have defensive issues to work on.
Dwight, what about Harbour Oquassa Chung? He's the leading goal scorer in the tournament. How does this help them?
I think Harbour is good going forward. You notice in my comment, I didn't say much about them having problems going forward. In fact, they've scored in all but 1 game this season. So they're a team that will score. I would bet for them to score. And if they were to lose this first leg, then I think it will be a fact that they score and lose if they don't get the defensive part right. But he has really taken a lot of responsibility on his young shoulders, and with 6 goals leading the competition, and has stepped up. And it's not just goals, it's valuable goals too, goals that have come to give them wins. I think all goals that he has scored were important in them winning games. So he'll be vital. And I think if Mount Pleasant do not have a plan for him, then he could make them pay. And if they give away free kicks around the penalty area, then he could be a very, very dangerous guy.
Can you assess Tivoli Vere, that one? Because Tivoli, they've won 3 of their last 5 games.
Yeah, Tivoli, they've really kicked on late, and it's the right time that they're peaking. The issue for me is that Tivoli, they will give you a chance. They back themselves on scoring goals, but they will give you a chance. The issue, though, is that Vere is not the type of team that you think is going to take advantage of those frailties that Tivoli will have when they do go forward. Vere is going to continue to play the way they have played. I mean, you feel like Coach Dookie could take a leaf from Humberland's book. When they did play Tivoli, they lost 4-3, but they did give them a scare, and they exploited those weaknesses that Tivoli showed. But Tivoli, it would be hard to see past Tivoli winning this tie. They've lost only once this season, and you think it was a bliss. They've been very sound defensively. But Vere, I think, is not going to show the type of creativity to go and give them a lot of trouble. So I think they'll just sit deep, and Tivoli will find that offensive thrust to really break them down eventually over 2 legs, if not the first one.
Yeah, Donovan Dookie is a student of the game, isn't he? When you listen to him talk, he plans in a very meticulous way. And they are a solid defensive team, the best defensive team in the league at the moment. And of the 10 regular season games, they had 5 clean sheets. With 90 minutes plus another 90 minutes because of the second leg, how would you think that Dookie would approach this game against Tivoli, who tend to be more prolific scoring than they are?
I know in the last game he lamented about having a few injuries. If he gets back those players, then maybe he has a little bit more flexibility. If he does not, then I don't see him changing a lot from what he has done. He's pretty much looked to stay solid and just to look for those 1 or 2 moments in the game where he can get that goal. And if he does, then he will try to ensure that he holds on to that. I see him going that way because he spoke about his team not being the most talented, and he feels like they have achieved above his expectation. However, for the first time, last time out, he did say after the game that he's in it to win it. So we'll wait to see how he will go about trying to beat Tivoli, because he will have to beat them. It's not a game in which he can take a point and go on. So I think he will look to explore a little bit more, but I think the bulk of his approach will be to stay solid defensively and just to look for those moments when he can make that transition and express his team a little bit more.
Yeah, and what about momentum going into the playoffs? Because coming out of the regular season, Tivoli has been the most solid team. Their unbeaten run is stretching 7 games now, the best unbeaten record at the moment in the league. Conversely, the Vere team, having started very well, have failed to win any of their last 3 and has lost 2 of their last 3. So from a momentum standpoint, Vere appear to be struggling going into the playoffs. Is this something that is a major factor as far as you're concerned?
It has to be a major factor. In fact, Vere has gotten into this top 6 merely because of their early season form and somewhat because of the inconsistency of teams below them. So yeah, they have not won a game since in the last 4 games, they have not won. And Tivoli, contrary to that, is pretty much on the up. So yeah, momentum not favouring Vere. So that has to play a major role in this. It will have to be a big turnaround. And that is why I don't see Coach Dookie really changing his plans so much so, because he's going to go back to basic, what he's comfortable with. And in moments like these, you try and stay solid and just try and pick your moment. And especially when he's up against teams that he thinks are very good offensively, he really does not show a lot of offensive ambitions. He really tailors his team to stay solid and just look for those. Set pieces could be a very critical part of his plans.
Okay, well, Dwight, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow and watching these games. Tivoli against Vere, the second match. Mount Pleasant will be up against Harbour in the opening match at midday, 1 o'clock Eastern Caribbean time. Thanks,
Looking
Dwight.
forward to 2 good games, I'm hoping.
Yeah, great. We go to break. Up next, Moran with the second zone updates.